So, good morning to all of you, uh, fifth semester biotechnology students. Today, I am going to do the last lecture on about the direct gene transfer in animals and in plants that is given in your recombinant DNA technology syllabus. So, let's get started. So, we have done up to the micro injection technique. Now we will go into more techniques given in your syllabus about the direct gene transfer in animals and plants. Well, the next technique is your liposome mediated transformation. Liposome mediated transformation technique. Now, what does it says here? Let us see. Liposomes are artificially created lipid vesicles. So they are artificially created lipids which contain a phospholipid membrane. So we have prepared artificially created lipid vesicles having polar head and non-polar tails, fatty acid tails, called as liposome. Now they are vesicles, right? They form a vesicle like structure, rounded like structure, and they are successfully used in mammalian cell for the delivery of protein, drugs, etc. Normally these liposomes are successfully used in mammalian cells for introducing some proteins, some drugs within the cells, within the target region, actually you can say. Liposomes carrying the genes can be employed to fuse with the protoplast and transfer the genes also. So it is given in this diagram. You can see that within the nucleus you can see the cell. Okay, the liposomes which are given as a round figure here, and inside we can see the genes or your gene of interest which can be delivered into this cell with the help of endocytosis, right? So here liposomes are artificially created lipid vesicles, and they carrying the genes. They also can fuse with the protoplast also, protoplast, where the cell wall has been removed from the plant cells. Okay, and you can easily fuse them and transfer your target gene into the cell. Now the efficiency of your transformation, that is how much success this liposome mediated transfer is about, it can be increased. That means you can increase the efficiency of this liposome mediated gene transfer when, if you use polyethylene glycol, that is if you use polyethylene glycol in this medium where this whole transformation process is being carried out. So in the presence of polyethylene glycol at suitable concentration, you can increase the efficiency of gene transfer, and the genes can be properly be introduced within the cell. Now directly genes are not given, we have to construct some plasmids, okay, because genes are unstable, right? Now here what we can see in liposome mediated transformation, that in liposome mediated transformation it only involves adhesion of the liposomes to the protoplast surface. So you can see the liposomes are attached to the surface of the protoplast, or you can say they are attached to the uh, plasma membrane of animal cells. Okay, and then they fuse at the site of attachment. So at the site of attachment they get fused in that vesicles, because interact with the membrane phospholipids, the liposomes are interacting with the membrane phospholipids, and then it release what it contain inside the inside the liposome. So it release the plasmids or the gene of interest, containing the gene of interest, right? And in this way, through liposome mediated gene transformation, we can easily, you can able to introduce the genes, introduce your target genes into your cells. Now there are some advantages as well as disadvantages. First advantage is that uh, first advantage is that, wait for a minute. The first advantage is that being present in an encapsulated form of liposomes, DNA is protected from environmental insult and damage. So, as we are encapsulating the liposomes, within the liposomes, we have our genes, we have our desirable genes inside. So, the DNA is being protected from environmental damage, from environmental stress, right? Second advantage is that DNA is stable and can be stored for some time in liposomes prior to transfer. So DNA is stable in this case when we are encapsulating the DNA in the liposomes, and can be stored for some time within the liposomes before transferring. It is applicable to wide range of plant cells. So liposomes can be used for transforming our desired DNA to wide range of plant cells. So you can apply this liposome mediated gene transformation to wide variety of your target plants. There is a good reproductivity in this technique. That means uh, it is more efficient, and you can increase your efficiency more by addition of polyethylene glycol. As you know, polyethylene glycol normally it binds to cations indirectly, or directly it can binds to with anions also in the plasma membrane or plasma lemma of your protoplast. And during the washing procedure, it it actually, when it is removing out, it also removing the components of the plasma membrane, and thus it destabilize the plasma membrane organization, and thus we can allow a chance of fusion between the neighboring liposomes, or even if you have neighboring protoplast also, it can be fused. But all the techniques have some limitations. Here the limitation of liposome fusion is that the major problem with liposome mediated transformation is the difficulty associated with the regeneration of plant from the transformed protoplast. Now, if we are using protoplast, there will be a problem, because to regenerate plants from that protoplast culture is bit of difficult. Earlier, we have seen that during somatic hybridization experiments, when we hybridize the protoplast to regenerate cell wall again on that protoplast, and again to generate them into a full plant by micropropagation technique is bit difficult. Otherwise, if you want to transfer your genes, target genes into animal cells, it is relatively easy. Okay, so more information is given about the liposome mediated gene transfer. I have given at the end of the in end pages. I have given. Let us see. Okay. Okay. So the same thing has been repeated here. It is saying the delivery of DNA into cells using liposomes is called lipofection. So the delivery of DNA, when you are introducing DNA into the cell by using artificially created lipid vesicles called as liposomes, is called lipofection. So what is liposomes? Liposomes are small vesicles which are prepared from a suitable lipid. So with the help of a similar type of lipid, phospholipid, it may be a phospholipid, we are creating small vesicles. Okay. Initially, non-ionic lipids were used for preparing liposomes so that DNA has to introduce within the vesicles following specific encapsulation procedures. So in the earlier days, we used to prepare liposomes non-ionic. So non-ionic lipids were used before. Okay, so when we introduce the DNA within that liposome vesicles, we have to follow specific encapsulation procedures. Well, encapsulation means when we are enclosing the DNA with lipid is known as encapsulation. Okay. Now, the the cationic liposomes have a single lipid bilayer membrane. Now, if you are using cationic liposomes, that means having positive charge, they have a single lipid bilayer, which is called as unilamellar. That means only one lipid layer is there, and they bind to the cells efficiently. Probably these liposomes fuse with the plasma membrane, and they thereby it transfer or deliver the DNA which is complex with them. That means the DNA is complexed, is mixed, fused with that liposomes inside. It is trapped inside, encapsulated inside. That DNA get transferred into the cells, which brings about transfection. Considerable work has been done on liposuction. Considerable work has been done on liposuction due to its potential application for targeting genes to specific human tissues for gene therapy. So nowadays, we can use this liposome mediated gene transfer by in gene therapy also, where we can introduce our desirable target gene into the artificially created lipid vesicles and prepare them to so that in specific tissues that liposomes can target can able to fuse with that human tissues for gene therapy. Now, about 8 approaches are being made for preparing liposomes for DNA delivery. Now there are about 8 approaches which has been mentioned here by so that we can prepare the liposomes for our DNA delivery. So these are the 8 points which are mentioned here. Let's try to see one by one what are the 8 approaches by using the liposome for transfer our target DNA. First point is saying usually liposomes are prepared by dispersion of a phospholipid like phosphatidylcholine. In short, we are writing phosphatidylcholine as PC in water by mechanical methods like sonication, which tends to destroy the DNA. DNA up to 1 kb has been incorporated into the small sonicated liposomes. So, with the help of sonication technique, where we use a certain vibration, a certain sound vibration, we are preparing the liposomes. A normal phospholipid bilayer is dispersed first. First, we are removing that phospholipid bilayer from a natural membrane by dispersion technique through sonication. That means with the help of sound waves, with the help of certain vibration of sound waves, we are dispersing the phospholipid layer, and then we are allowing that phospholipids to be prepared to form a vesicle where we can introduce our desirable DNA up to 1 kb. This approach was first prepared, right? So simple thing, by the help of sonication technique, dispersion of a phospholipid like phosphatidylcholine has been dispersed in water, and then these dispersed phospholipids are assembled to form a vesicle inside which DNA of up to 1 kb has been incorporated into it, right? Second, what it is saying, however, other techniques allow entrapment of large DNA sequence into liposomes. Well, in the first case, we see DNA up to 1 kb can be inserted, but other techniques are also being done to prepare liposomes where they can we can introduce more than 1 kb of DNA, like exposure of anionic lipid phosphatidylserine to calcium ions and two phase techniques. So there are some other techniques also by exposing the anionic, that means the negative charge lipid like phosphatidylserine to calcium ion, and two phase techniques can be prepared so that we can large amount of our target DNA can be inserted. Okay, so these are the two techniques. These are the two techniques, extra techniques which can be employed. Exposure of your anionic lipid phosphatidylserine to calcium ions, and two phase techniques. So liposomes prepared by above two approaches are phagocytosed by cell, normally with the help of phagocytosis, where we have seen in cell biology classes that during phagocytosis liposomes are fusing with the with the lipids found in the plasma membrane, and the phagocytosis vesicles which forms phagosome, right, but it also forms phagolysosome to destroy the components found in the phagosome, but here it will not be done. Okay, so the phagocytosis vesicles thus produce ordinarily fuse with the lysosome, leading to the DNA degradation and low transfection frequencies. Okay, okay. So it means to say that what happens during phagocytosis, we all know that during phagocytosis the phagosome get inserted and fuse with the lysosome to form phagolysosome. And what contain in lysosome, we all know it contain degrading enzymes which will degrade your target DNA. So by doing liposome mediated gene transfer, it is bit of low efficiency because we are using the same principle as in phagocytosis. We are trying to introduce our liposome where our desirable DNA is there, and by the process of phagocytosis they are getting engulfed into the cell. Now this phagosome which contain our DNA of interest is further fused with lysosomes and form phagolysosomes. Now lysosomes obviously they will degrade because it is a foreign DNA, by the way. It will treat them as antigens, and as your efficiency of liposomes are getting reduced, the transfection technology get reduced, so we have to more increase them. Then what they have done, this is the third approach. They have used the fusion protein of Sendai virus incorporated within the liposome membrane. Why? Why they have used the fusion protein of Sendai virus, which is a type of virus? The protein of the Sendai virus is incorporated in the liposome membrane. It will enable the fusion of liposomes with the plasma lemma and thereby direct delivery of the DNA into the cytoplasm. Okay. So here no phagosome will be produced. Here no phagosome will be produced directly when we are using the Sendai virus fusion protein. When we are using Sendai virus fusion protein into that liposomes directly, the liposomes fully fused. It does not form endocytosis. It does not form the vesicles inside also. In phagocytosis we form an endosome, right? This will not occur here. The plasma membrane will fully interact with these liposomes and it will fuse. The lipids will fuse. The lipids found within the liposomes will totally fuse with the plasma membrane, or you can say plasma lemma, and directly your DNA will be delivered into the cytoplasm. But there's also a problem. If the liposomes get fused, okay, the lipids found within the liposomes are totally fused with the lipids of the plasma lemma, or you can say plasma membrane, and your DNA gets into the cytoplasm. But inside the cytoplasm there are many enzymes are there. Okay, so here no endosome is formed. That's okay, but your DNA is actually it's getting the naked DNA is there. Okay, so we have to protect our DNA. Now that's why direct DNA is not used. Vector is used with the DNA so that it can able to enter, it can able to target that DNA into the nucleus where it will fuse. Okay, now for this a receptor protein is also incorporated within that liposome so that it will permit a controlled delivery of the DNA into the target cells. So if you want that DNA to be incorporated to the target cells, only in that cells the DNA will deliver. So what we have done, we have introduced certain receptor protein, a type of glycoprotein we all know, on the membranes of the on the surface of the liposomes and direct them so that with the help of the receptor protein they, in a controlled manner, the DNA get introduced into the target cell's cytoplasm. Next, number 4, it has been says the use of ionizable lipids that go phase changes is response to the pH of the cytoplasm, like di, dioleo- dioleuoyl phosphatidyl ethanol amine, dioleuoyl dioleuoyl phosphatidyl ethanol amine, which is known as DOPE dope, to construct liposomes. Usually, a mixture of dioleuoyl phosphatidyl ethanol amine and phosphatidylcholine is used. Such liposomes release DNA into the cytoplasm once they are phagocytosed. So, there is also a type of ionizable lipids. So, we can also use ionizable lipids also that undergo phase transition, or you can say phase change, in response to the pH of the cytoplasm. Like for example, we have used dope, which is called dioleuoyl phosphatidyl ethanol amine, also called as dope, with phosphatidylcholine is used to make a liposome, to construct a mixed liposome. And such liposomes are ionizable lipid molecules which will quickly respond to the pH of the cytoplasm. It will change its shape. So there will be no formation of phagosome. Once the liposome get inserted to the cytoplasm as phagosome, due to the presence of pH, due to the change in the response of pH found in the cytoplasm, it quickly gets it quickly gets change in their structure, and thus no endosome is formed inside. It quickly releases the DNA into the cytoplasm. So you can go for the three process or the fourth process. In third process, we have used Sendai virus fusion protein, which was incorporated to the liposome membrane, which allows the liposomes to be fused with the plasma lemma. Well, plasma lemma is also made up of lipid molecules, and totally your DNA get entered to the cytoplasm. No endosome is formed in the third point. But in the fourth point has been mentioned, okay, we can prepare endosomes, but in response to pH inside the cytoplasm of target cells, that endosome will open up and release the target DNA inside the cytoplasm. So for this we have to use ionizable lipids. For this we have to use ionizable lipids which will undergo phase transition, or you can say phase change, in response to the pH of the cytoplasm. Like for example, such type of ionizable lipids are dioleuoyl phosphatidyl ethanolamine, which is also called as dope, with phosphatidylcholine is used so that they can be used in liposome formation directly in presence of certain pH. Change in the pH, the liposomes inside the cell, when it enters, it opens up and release our desirable DNA into the cytoplasm. Okay, more to go. Number 5th point, use of cationic liposomes to which DNA binds on outside the on outside by electrostatic attraction. So these are another approach where we can use them. So we use cationic liposomes, positively charged liposomes, to which DNA will bind on the outside. The liposomes where DNA will bind outside. We know DNA is negative charge because of presence of phosphate groups on their backbone of the DNA. And on outside, it binds with the cationic liposomes, positive charge liposomes. And how they are attaching outside? That means their DNA is not encapsulated. The DNA is not inside the vesicles of the liposome. The DNA is on the surface of the liposomes. So by electrostatic attraction, the DNA attach with the cationic liposomes on the surface. Now these liposomes cause perturbations in the plasma membrane, due to which they fuse and DNA enters to the cytoplasm. So by using this type of liposomes, we can directly introduce them into the plasma membrane, okay, where they fuse and your DNA easily enters to the cytoplasm. No endosomes is formed. There is no possibility of degradation of the DNA by lysosomes. Cationic liposomes are available commercially. Nowadays, commercially in your market, we can find out this type of cationic liposomes which are being marketized, which are being commercially used, and they are marketed as lipofectin. The name is lipofectin, which is commercially used nowadays, and the company that produce this type of cationic liposomes is your Gibco BRL company. Okay, so this is a very easy method. Here we are not encapsulating, here we are not entrapping the DNA inside the liposomes. Rather, we are allowing the cationic liposomes to attach with the DNA on the outside by electrostatic attraction, and then these liposomes are allowed to fuse with the plasma membrane, due to which when they fuse, the DNA easily get inside the cytoplasm of the cell. Okay. More is there. I'm not going for the 6 point. Okay, so look at the number 8 point. It is also important. They will not give you so much about this, about the whole techniques. You have to go into say some of these points: improvement of this liposome mediated gene transformation. Okay, so what does it says? Animal virus particles are enclosed in lipoprotein envelopes. Most of the animal virus particles are enclosed within the lipoprotein envelopes. So viral envelopes separated from the capsid proteins and viral genomes have been used to package our desired DNA. These are the particles are called virosomes. So again I repeat, it is saying from here, the viral envelopes which are separated from the capsid proteins and viral genomes. So the viral envelope is nowadays used from animal virus. The viral envelope is used to package our desirable DNA. These particles are called as virosomes. Virosomes have been used to transfer cells in vitro, that means in the lab, but in most cases, virosomes end up in lysosomes and result in degradation of 80% of the DNA. Now you can also use virus, the viral envelopes, as a mode of transfer of delivering the DNA, because the viral envelopes are also made up of lipids. So natural lipoprotein envelopes, you can say. Within that viral envelopes, we can introduce our DNA and allow that viral envelopes to be transfected to the cells. Okay, but the main problem is that as viral envelopes are recognized by your cell as a foreign body, so they quickly undergo phagocytosis where they interact with the lysosome inside the cell and tries to and degrades and tries to degrade the DNA, the content inside the cell, because the cell is treating behaving like as animal virus, right? But we have remove the pathogenicity part of the virus. We have only used the viral envelope where no pathogenicity is there, but still the lysosome will interact with the viral envelope inside and it will degrade with the help of their enzymes, degrading enzymes. It will degrade the uh, content inside the viral envelope, that is your target DNA. Okay, so this all thing has been given. Don't go for all of these points. Okay, I have mentioned some of these points. Let's go for other techniques now. Let's go for other techniques. Well, this is also an important technique, calcium phosphate precipitation. So let us see about this calcium phosphate precipitation technique. Now in this approach, DNA preparation to be used for transfection is first dissolved in a phosphate buffer. Well, we use phosphate buffer for stabilization of DNA. Here, after preparing the DNA, after stabilizing the DNA, we are dissolving the DNA in phosphate buffer solution. Then calcium chloride solution is added to the DNA solution. Now, when we add this calcium chloride solution to the DNA solution, it leads to a formation of a precipitate known as calcium phosphate precipitate, which is insoluble. It will co-precipitates with the DNA, so DNA gets entangled with it. This calcium phosphate DNA precipitate is added to the cells where transfection process will occur. That means the DNA will be introduced into the cells. The precipitate particles are taken in by the cells. So cells will now engulf that DNA containing calcium phosphate containing the DNA by the process of phagocytosis. In the same way, just like liposome mediated gene transfer was done. So again I repeat. So first what we do? First we prepare our DNA. It is dissolved in phosphate buffer. Then calcium chloride solution is added to the DNA solution where phosphate buffer is there. It leads to a formation of a insoluble calcium phosphate. That insoluble calcium phosphate co-precipitate with the DNA and form calcium phosphate DNA precipitate. Now this calcium phosphate DNA precipitate added to the cells, target cells, where we want to introduce our desirable DNA. Now that precipitate particles are taken in by the cells by phagocytosis, right? Initially, 1 to 2% of the cells were transfected by this approach, but this procedure now have been modified to obtain transfection of 20% of the cells. In earlier days, only 1 to 2% successful was done. Transfection was successfully was achieved. But nowadays, by modification of a little bit of this technique, by modification of this technique, 20% of the cells can be transfected by this approach. That means 20% of the cells can uptake the DNA by this calcium phosphate co-precipitation approach. In a small proportion of the transfected cells, the DNA becomes integrated into the cell genome, producing stable or permanent transfection. This general approach can be applied virtually to all mammalian cells. That means if you want to go for plant cells, then we have to prepare protoplast first, and then we can introduce our desirable DNA by this calcium phosphate precipitation technique. In case of animal cells, it is easy because there is no cell wall is present, so directly we can use them, our target animal cells, for transfection of this procedure. A large number of cells can be treated with a little effort. So it is not so much. We are not using any harsh chemicals. There's no proper. There's no chance of having any. If a mature cells, they will remain in their stable form. Okay, it's not like that it cause injury to the cells actually. Many cell lines do not like calcium phosphate precipitate adhering to their surface on their substrate, the substrate surface of the culture vessels. Now there is a problem little bit that many cell lines, the cell culture we are going, okay, we are maintaining the cells, particular cells, they don't like this calcium phosphate precipitate adhering to their surface. It's not like that they will not survive, but they don't like it, interferes with their normal metabolic activities actually. So let's see the diagram. So here we can see the cell, the target cell. Here we can see the DNA in phosphate buffer. We are introducing calcium chloride solution here. We are introducing calcium chloride solution here into this phosphate buffer where DNA is there and forms a precipitate called DNA calcium phosphate co-precipitate. Now this DNA calcium phosphate co-precipitate is allowed to phagocytose by the cell, and by the process of phagocytosis, they are engulfing that DNA calcium phosphate co-precipitate, and we can introduce our target DNA into the target cells, right? Okay. Well, I have said about the electroporation before, but here more little bit details has been mentioned. Always see this one, that how much voltage is applied, 4000 to 8000 V per centimeter. Okay, for a few milliseconds is done. We are keeping the cells, target cells and your DNA in a particular buffer solution where we are applying a voltage of 4000 to 8000 V per centimeter for a few milliseconds. That is a high voltage gradient for a few milliseconds, which cause transient pores, that means temporary pores in the cell membrane through which DNA seems to enter the cells. We can increase the efficiency of this by treating the K cells with spermidine solution with calcimide before they are electroporated, which increase the frequency of transfection. Okay. Why? Because calcimide will, what they do, they arrest the cell at their metaphase, and at the metaphase there is no nuclear envelope present, so there is no chance directly. So as calcimide, so we can also use you can also use colchicine also, because they also disrupt the spindle fiber at the metaphase stage, thereby they are not allowing the cell to go further divisions. But colchicine is a poison, mitotic poison. But here calcimide is normally is not, it is a dilute form. Okay, so they will arrest the cell at the metaphase stage, and during the metaphase there is no such nuclear membrane forms. Okay, the nuclear membrane, the nuclear envelope disappears. So by that time, if we can able to do transfection, we enter our desirable DNA. Okay, there is a possibility of introducing them into the target cells. Okay, so this has been mentioned before. More techniques are there. I have also given some selectable marker genes for plant transformation that I will do in the next classes. Okay, let's see other modes of gene transformation technique. So silicon carbide fiber mediated transformation. Well, here we use fibers made up of silicon carbide. The length of that silicon carbide fibers are 0.3 to 0.6 micrometer in diameter, and length is about 10 to 100 micrometer. So small fibers. And these fibers are capable of penetrating the cell wall. They can enter into the cell wall also. So no need of making protoplast. Directly these silicon carbide fibers can penetrate in the cell wall and also obviously to the plasma membrane, and thus deliver the DNA into the cells. The DNA coated silicon carbide fibers are vortexed. Vortex means there is a machine called vortex machine where we mix the inner components inside the cells. Okay, it forms a vortex that's like a tornado in shape with the plant material. So here what we do, let us see again. DNA coated silicon carbide fiber. Just like in case of biologistic method, we have said we have used micro projectile coated with DNA. Here we use a silicon carbide fiber, and within that silicon carbide fiber we have our DNA. We have our DNA coated on that silicon carbide fiber, and they are vortex means they are mixed with the plant material. Now here the plant material is in the suspension culture. Well, we know suspension culture is what? A liquid culture where the cells are suspended in the solution. So in that we are introducing our silicon carbide fiber into it and we are vortexing it. Now during the mixing process, the DNA which is adhering, that means the DNA which is attaching to that silicon carbide fiber, they enter to the cell and get stably integrated with the host genome. Simple thing. So we prepare a silicon carbide fiber, and that silicon carbide fiber is coated with our target DNA, and here we use suspension culture, where because here we are actually mainly interested on plant biotechnology here, so I am saying, so here we use suspension culture where where single cells or multicellular cells are suspended in the liquid medium. Okay, and then we introduce that silicon carbide fibers coated with DNA into this culture medium. Okay, and we vortex them, means mix them. During the process of mixing, as we know that silicon carbide fiber can easily penetrate to the cell wall and also to the plasma membrane. So during the process of mixing, the DNA attached to the silicon carbide fiber enters to the cell and gets stably integrated with the host genome. Okay, nowadays commercially we can get this silicon carbide fiber in the name of whiskers in the market. Well, here the disadvantage of silicon carbide fiber, as you can see, it can penetrate into a cell wall, so there may be a chance of mechanical injury to the cells. That will be a disadvantage, obviously. Okay, let us see the more disadvantage on there. Silicon carbide fiber are carcinogenic. Oh, so it's called cancer. It can cause you cancer, and therefore it has to be carefully handled. So silicon carbide fiber can penetrate into the cell wall, it can penetrate into the plasma membrane. It can cause mechanical injury, okay, but it also they are carcinogenic, cancer causing agent. So it has to be handled carefully. And second, the embryonic plant cells are hard and compact and are resistant to silicon carbide fiber penetration. So those which are embryonic plant cells, those which are embryonic plant cells, their cell wall are quite hard. You cannot penetrate the silicon carbide fibers into this cell wall of embryonic plant cells. So here there is a limitation on this technique. Second is they are carcinogenic. The advantage of this silicon carbide mediated transformation is that direct delivery of DNA into intact wall cells. That means here no protoblast is used. Don't have to prepare protoblast. Only simple the plant cells can be used intactly for transfer of our DNA through silicon carbide mediated transfer, because silicon carbide fiber can easily penetrate into the plant cell wall also. But not some of them. There are some exception like the embryonic plant cells. The embryonic plant cells are very hard. They have a hard cell wall. That means the composition of the embryonic plant cells are so hard that silicon carbide fiber cannot able to introduce. This is an exception, right? And procedure is very simple. There is no such laborious technique. There is no expert needed here. Like in microinjection, we need expert, because if we touch one of the organelles, the whole cell will become damaged. But here, no such what we can say, no such experienced personnel will be needed. So procedure is very simple, does not involve costly equipment. The cost of vortex machine is very very low. Okay. The next transformation technique, I have already said, polyethylene glycol mediated transformation. In plant biotechnology, I have discussed during a protoplast hybridization, right? Here also we use the same technique. Now, polyethylene glycol, in the presence of divalent cations like calcium ions, destabilizes the plasma membrane of protoplast and renders it permeable to the naked DNA. So, here we use calcium ions, we use divalent cations with high pH and polyethylene glycol. Together, these things will destabilize the plasma membrane organization of the protoplast and causes pore formation, so that we can, pore means holes, small small holes, temporary pores, transient pores you can say, which allows the DNA to be inserted. In this way, the DNA enters the nucleus of the protoplast and gets integrated within the genome. Now, the procedure involves isolation of the protoplast. How we can go for protoplast mediated, how we can go for your polyethylene glycol mediated gene transfer. First, we have to isolate the protoplast. We have to prepare protoplast, removing the cell wall, maintaining the stability of the protoplast by using suitable osmoticum, which will maintain the osmotic concentration inside the inside the cell, by using mannitol sorbitol solution at certain molar concentration. And we we use the suspension culture here. Liquid culture is there. Addition of the plasmid DNA, where we have our desirable DNA, followed by slow addition of 40% of polyethylene glycol 4000, dissolved in mannitol. Mannitol is used for maintaining the osmolarity, and calcium nitrate solution. As this mixture is incubated, the protoplast get transformed with your target DNA. So simply here what we do, we isolate the protoplast, we keep that protoplast as it is a cell culture, we keep them in liquid medium, which is a suspension culture. Then we add our plasmid DNA, which contain our desirable DNA of interest insert into that plasmid, and it is followed by slow addition of 40% of polyethylene glycol in that solution. That polyethylene glycol is actually dissolved in sorbit in mannitol, or you can use sorbitol also for maintaining the osmolarity, and calcium nitrate is used. As this mixture is incubated for a certain time, your protoplast get transformed with our target cells. Advantage: large number of protoplasts can be used, can be transformed with this technique. That's why the protoplast mediated transformation can be done only with polyethylene glycol mediated gene transfer. Well, you can also use animal cells also here also, through of this technique. There is no problem, and this technique can be used for a wide range of plant species. Okay. Obviously, there is some limitations of this polyethylene glycol mediated transformation. DNA is susceptible for degradation and rearrangement. Now, there is a chance that DNA can be degraded, and DNA can rearrange also, recombination that it can occurs, and it can modify your expression. Random integration of foreign DNA into a genome may result in undesirable trait. Now, if DNA get inserted in a random manner, DNA rearrangement will occur. That will leads to undesirable protein formation, and that from that protein we will get some undesirable trait, some undesirable character. And regeneration of plants from the transformed protoplast is difficult task. This is every time they are saying that if we are using protoplast, You have transformed the protoplast with your target DNA, or you have fused the protoplast, okay, but to regenerate the plant from that protoplast is bit difficult task. Okay, first there is difficulty in regeneration of cell wall from that protoplast. How you will regenerate the cell wall? Then there is a difficulty from that plant cell, how you can regenerate them into plant through micropropagation. Okay, so that is the limitation. Okay, next is the DEAE, dextran mediated transfer. Well, in a small paragraph they have mentioned that the desirable DNA can be complex with a chemical of high molecular weight. It is a polymer actually, diethyl aminoethyl dextran, right? So the desirable DNA can be complex, that means can be mixed with DEAE dextran, that means diethyl aminoethyl dextran. This diethyl aminoethyl dextran is of high molecular weight polymer, and then it is transferred to your target plant cell. The major limitation of this approach is still not clear. Okay, and one of the limitation has been mentioned here, that it does not yield stable transformants. What does it mean? You can enter your DNA of interest to the target cell, but that DNA is not stable. The reason has not been clear. Okay, let us see more about DEAE. Well, it is given here. Yeah, here it is. So diethyl aminoethyl dextran, right? It is a water soluble and polycationic. That means poly means many, cationic means it has multiple positive charge. It has multiple positive charge. Now, this diethyl aminoethyl dextran is added to the transfection solution containing the DNA. Now, we all know DNA is negative charge and it binds. DNA is negative charge. Wait. DNA is negative charge, and that DNA binds to the positive charge DEAE. It binds to the positive charge DEAE. Okay, in some unknown way, DEAE dextran brings about DNA to uptake the DNA by cells through endocytosis. It is saying that when DEAE is fused with the DNA, because DEAE is positive charge and DNA is negative charge, so by electrostatic interaction they interact, and after that it is saying that DEAE introduced to the target cells by the process of endocytosis. So by the process of endocytosis, DEAE, they brings the DNA to be uptaken by the cells. That means cells will uptake the DNA mixed with the DEAE by endocytosis. Possibly its interaction with negative charged DNA molecules and with the components of the cell surface plays an important role. The main reason the scientists are expecting that possibly that DEAE positive charge and it binds with the negative charge DNA. On the other hand, DEAE can also bind with the negative charge molecules in the plasma membrane. So due to this interaction, they can able to penetrate inside the DNA, penetrate inside the target cells by the process of endocytosis. This procedure is highly suited for transient transfection used for various molecular biology studies. That means it is saying that for transient transfection, that means for temporary transfection in the laboratory, this type of technique is normally employed, particularly by using COS cell lines. Well, what is COS cell lines? I have to see. The most commonly used cell line that we know is Chinese hamster ovary cell line, which is known as CHO, but COS I don't know. Chinese hamster is a type of guinea pig that is normally grown in China, and they are being employed for wide range of genetic studies because it is a mammal, by the way. However, again, some unknown reason it is still not efficient in producing stable transfection. It is saying that there is some unknown reason that why stable transfection is not done. That means we have introduced our DNA through endocytosis by using the diethyl aminoethyl dextran mediated transfer, but it is not stably integrated temporarily. The DNA is not stable in this technique. Okay, so this was all about what I have said today about the different direct mediated gene transfer methods. I hope you have understood what I have mentioned today. If you have any doubts regarding this chapter, you can ask me in the WhatsApp group. And please, I am requesting again that each of these lectures are very, very important. So go through these lectures, okay? Because on the basis of this, I will take a test also. I will take a test also in probably in the mid November related with this techniques related with this plant biotechnology, because almost all of the plant biotechnology syllabus has been completed. So I will take a plant biotechnology test probably in during the mid November. So get prepared. MCQ test and short of question answer test maybe. Okay, so that's all for today's lecture.